Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, June 13th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 79 days, the game against Michigan in 170 days. We're counting down the days to that Michigan game. Of course, counting down the days to the Akron game, too. There are a lot of anticipated games, interesting games on this year's Ohio State football schedule. It's an interesting one because it's not the most dangerous schedule Ohio State has ever played. But there are a lot of really, really interesting games. It is not all Akron and Western Michigan on this year's schedule. So today we're going to be talking about some of the most interesting games on that schedule. We're doing that with our buddy Kevin Noon of BuckeyeHuddle.com. And Kevin, we'll get to Oregon, and it's going to be potentially 2 versus 3, 1 versus 2. It might be one of the biggest games of the regular season. This is an Ohio State show. We have all watched the last 3 seasons of Ohio State football. We know the game. That is the one that everyone is going to be focused on. It is the one we talk about at the start of the show every single day for years and years and years. Kevin, we got to talk about the Michigan game. It feels like that's going to be the one with the most interest on this year's Ohio State schedule by a wide margin, at least among Buckeye fans.
It really is. And I think one of the big questions is going to be, what is Michigan going to be this year? Because I think the Vegas line is 9.5 wins for Michigan, which means you think Ohio State's potentially going to win the game. Are they going to be 9-2 going into that game? Are they going to be 10-1? I mean, are they going to be less? We just don't know. But what we do know, Ohio State has dropped 3 in a row to them. Ohio State has been kept out of the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State has not hoisted a Big Ten championship trophy in quite some time. And Ohio State fans are just getting kind of plain sick and tired of the outcome of these games, especially coming off of the Urban Meyer era and coming off of the Jim Tressel era and just having so much success for 20 years. And it all kind of took a hard left turn, and Jim Harbaugh's gone, but I think there's going to be plenty of animosity from Ohio State fans towards Sharon Moore. And people aren't going to be less interested in it because it isn't Jim Harbaugh. People are not going to be less interested in it because there's no J.J. McCarthy or whoever. There are going to be plenty of people from that cast of characters that Ohio State fans have no love for. And if the Buckeyes are going to be as special as people think that they're going to be this year, not only does this game have to be a win for Ohio State, but probably a convincing one in that matter. And it doesn't hurt that it is in Columbus and not up 23 in that unnameable state.
Yeah, no need to stop by the truck stop in North Baltimore with the famous Ohio State Michigan bathroom hallway. No, you will get to watch the Ohio State Michigan game at home this year in Columbus. Yeah, that I know it's not the biggest necessarily in terms of national profile in some ways, in terms of what the on-field matchup might be, but that just feels like that is going to be the game that just defines this Ohio State regular season one way or the other. If they lose to Oregon in October, there will be people upset. They will probably get a second crack at Oregon in Indianapolis and could potentially get a third crack at Oregon in the college football playoff. It feels like you might get one swing at Michigan, and you better connect if you're going to do that. So Michigan, number 1 on the list. Okay, we've made you wait long enough. Number 2, Oregon. It is, if you look at some of the early preseason rankings, these are number 2 and number 3 in the country. Certainly both top 5 teams this year. Michigan projected to take a little bit of a step back. Just in terms of pure rankings, the Ohio State-Oregon game might be the highest ranked matchup of the season. And if Georgia loses an early one, and they've got a couple losable games on their schedule before this one would happen, Ohio State certainly should be undefeated going into Eugene. And Oregon's schedule going into that game is Idaho, Boise State, at Oregon State, at UCLA, and Michigan State. There's not a real obvious loss there. It feels, Kevin, like this has been a game I think you and I and Tony have been looking forward to for a number of years. We were thinking we were going to get to go out there in 2020, and then that game got canceled. That's a place I've been looking forward to seeing a game for a number of years. And oh, by the way, it might be the biggest regular season game of all this college football nationwide this year.
And we'll have a better idea of who Ohio State is, what Ohio State is for that game, because this game isn't until mid-October. I think it's October 12th, week 7. So we'll see Ohio State maybe go through some of its growing pains in terms of new quarterback, still trying to see what we think about the offensive line, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think when you go from 1 to 22, this is the game that is a lot more talent equated than any other game on Ohio State's schedule. These teams are very, very similar in a lot of ways. Oregon goes out, has to go back to the transfer portal to get a quarterback as well because Bo Nix is out of after 17 years of eligibility, no longer has any eligibility left. The game is going to be an Outson, which I think if you're a big fan of college football, you understand how hostile and noisy that place is. I think if you're maybe a more casual fan, it's like, it's not the biggest stadium, but apparently, and this is the last stadium in the Big Ten for me, the new 18-team Big Ten that I've not seen a game in. I've seen one in all 17 other ones, but supposedly everything is just really close together and high, and there's just no way for the noise to escape. So this is going to be a real test for Ohio State, a real road environment. And again, I'm not trying to denigrate anybody else, but this one comes in and kind of fits with what you're going to get at a school that we've already talked about, a school that I'm sure we're going to be talking about here in a second. This is going to have all of the hype, everything in there. And, this is the type of game that Ohio State normally doesn't lose under Ryan Day. I mean, but then again, I had that same saying going into the Cotton Bowl, and they lost to Missouri. But of course, there were extenuating circumstances there. But this is going to be a huge game on a day filled with huge games. October 12th is going to be college football nirvana for a lot of people. And I'm just hopeful that whatever the schedule gods have, allow us time to be able to at least see a little bit, or maybe I'll have to figure out how to take a DVR with me to Oregon so we can watch some of this stuff, because it's a date that I have circled. And as an old curmudgeon who doesn't get excited by a lot, I am excited about this day of football.
Yeah, it's a big day. It's a big week. It is a huge trip. It's an enormous game. Yeah, I am really looking forward to just about everything about that week and that game. And we have kind of tried to do the squinter eyes and do the schedule math. And as near as I can figure, I think NBC traded with Fox, and so that would put the Ohio State Oregon game in prime time. It would be a 7:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific kickoff. That is not anything final. That's just Tony and I spending a lot of time thinking about TV schedules and doing shows about TV schedules and incorporating some new information. So you might get a chance to at least watch the noon games on that day, or we might just be at the stadium 6 hours before the game. That's been known to happen on big game days as well. We'll be there one way or the other.
2 hours from Portland. I mean, we'll be in the car at best. Yeah.
Yeah, we may get to listen to some noon games on the radio in the car on the way to the stadium. How about that? But either way, that's that game. Next up, Penn State. And this is another one where, this is one we haven't been to Oregon. Kevin and I have been to a whole bunch of games at Penn State, and some of them have been primetime whiteouts. Some of them have been noon. There was the 2020 game where there was no one there. But pretty much every time Ohio State plays at Penn State, you're at some point in the fourth quarter and it's like, hey, it's a one-score game again. How is it always a one-score game when Ohio State plays at Penn State? This year is a year when you look at Penn State's schedule at West Virginia, Bowling Green, Kentucky, Kent State, Illinois, UCLA, at USC, at Wisconsin. There's not an obvious loss there. This could be potentially a matchup of unbeatens right around Halloween in Happy Valley, and we will do our TV Kreskin thing as well. I'm going to say big noon kickoff for this one, based again on some of the rumblings on game times and TV network swapping weeks and all that kind of stuff. Again, that will not necessarily be known until much closer, because that's the week of the Oregon-Michigan game. So I don't know that anyone has officially made their decision yet, but that would be my guess right now. But either way, Kevin, every time you and Tony and I load up the car and load up the family truckster, drive to Happy Valley, it is pretty much always just a great four-quarter game.
It is, and they played there before around Halloween, and I think that it was a day game that last time as well, and Penn State fans were irate, but don't forget Fox has the MLB contract for the postseason, and that just creates a lot of confusion and everything else. So you do run the possibility of it being put in Fox's premier slot, which is the 12 p.m. Eastern slot. And I think if you're an Ohio State fan, you're not shedding any tears. We're going to learn a lot about quarterback Drew Aller, what he's capable of doing for Penn State. Last year, not so much. I know he didn't throw a lot of picks, but you can sit there and have a quarterback who doesn't throw a lot of picks if you don't necessarily trust him and don't give him a lot of things over the middle or between the numbers. So what do they look like? Julian Fleming goes there. Looks like he's going to be their number one receiver due to Keandre Lambert-Smith going into the portal, some other moves. They may have some young guys. I mean, obviously, they've got the 1-2 punch at running back with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Defensively, you have Abdul Carter, the linebacker. My way too early look at this is this really shouldn't be a one-score game in terms of Ohio State coming out on top. This should probably be a larger score, but you're right. Every time we sit there, we look at this game in Happy Valley, it's way too close for way too long. And it's, I'm hard pressed to think about a lot of times that Ohio State's been able to just come in and put its foot on the neck of Penn State and submit. So a lot of excitement. We're getting to the point of where the first college football playoff rankings will come out. That's generally like the first Tuesday of November, if I recall correctly. All bets are off these days now with the 12-team playoff, which is short term for the 12-team playoff before we get to the 14-team playoff. But a lot of excitement for that one. I would say that, in most years that might be the most exciting game not named Michigan, but throw that Oregon trip in there. And for a schedule that isn't necessarily going to be in the top 15 nationally in strength of schedule, the three games on the top of the schedule are pretty damn exciting.
Yeah, I think you could look at those three games that we just talked about, and you could conceivably have any or all of those three teams in the college football playoff, potentially in addition to Ohio State. The Big Ten, you see a lot of the projections, the Big Ten getting 3, maybe 4 teams in the college football playoff this year. It's entirely possible that those 3 teams plus Ohio State are the 3 or 4 teams in that college football playoff this year. So yeah, you're playing some really high caliber competition, and you have a little bit more margin for error, so maybe you can enjoy it a little more, where one loss doesn't necessarily completely ruin your season, but you're going to have some very high-stakes football games there as well. The next one on my list, number 4, this is all about where and not who, because Northwestern's fine, whatever. Ohio State has lost once to Northwestern since 1971, and that happened in a uniquely bad year for Ohio State football, 2004, and it took overtime and a pretty good Northwestern team that year to do it. They're playing at Northwestern, but unlike most of the previous games where they've played at Northwestern, they're not playing at Ryan Field. They are playing at Wrigley Field. The matchup on this one, Kevin, is pretty much irrelevant to me. The location on this one, I've been to Wrigley for baseball games a few times before, so it's not brand new to me, but I am really looking forward to being there and seeing football up close in person in one of the great sporting venues in America.
Let's be honest, Ohio State's never going to play in the Fenway Bowl. Ohio State's never going to play in the Gotham Bowl. Is that the one that they play at Yankee Stadium? So, smoke them if you got them. This is not going to be a regular occurrence. I don't know what the timeline is on the rebuild of Ryan Field. We know that they do a good job when they do build a new facility there. If you look at their football facility, that's right on the water. There's no way that they would have put this game at their temporary soccer stadium home or whatever they're doing for most of these other games. All sorts of interesting sight lines. This is going to be a hot ticket because Ohio State alumni, there are a lot of them around the Chicagoland area. Plus, I think a lot of fans are going to have the same view of Tom and myself of, we may never get to see this type of matchup again in terms of the location. So we better jump on it, get these tickets, and see what's there. As for what Northwestern's going to be, nobody expected anything out of David Braun's team last year. He goes on and wins Big Ten Coach of the Year. They win, they go to a bowl, and I believe they won their bowl, if I recall correctly. That's how little I think about Northwestern these days. But I think that nobody's going to have a home field advantage in terms of knowing what to expect playing at Wrigley. And I think that it's going to be like an Ohio State game at Northwestern, even at Ryan Field, where there are probably going to be more Ohio State fans there than Northwestern fans. But I'm looking forward to it as long as I don't have to like sit in like an auxiliary press box, like on the field or like something terrible. Just let me do my job the way that I know how to, poorly.
Yeah, we'll see where the media gets put. I'm going to guess pretty much all the seats are going to be full, so I don't know how many auxiliary press boxes they're going to be putting in there. You might be in the regular baseball press box. Maybe they'll let you sit in the seventh inning stretch between the third and the fourth quarters. That'd be fun.
I may have to sit in the scoreboard. Who the hell knows?
That'd be fun. Maybe get you on one of the rooftops across the street. Wherever you are, if you're there in person, you're doing all right. Just a couple of housekeeping notes there. I will be Kevin's editor here. Northwestern did win their bowl game last year. They beat Utah 14-7 in the Las Vegas Bowl. I'm sure you all knew that off the top of your head. I know that I did, and definitely didn't have to look it up. And Northwestern's new stadium expected to open for the 2026 season. So yes, this would very likely be Ohio State's only trip to Wrigley Field during the interim period for Northwestern's non-football stadium season. So, all right, those two notes. Now on to another school with an N on their helmets, and that's Nebraska. This is the fifth and final game we're going to be talking about today. And Nebraska has, for years and years and years, essentially since Frank Solich got fired, been kind of somewhere between okay and pretty good. But, Bo Pelini Day is September 4th because they were always 9-4, and then now they haven't made a bowl game since 2017, I think, and they can't win close games. Eventually, they are going to get over the hump. I'm going to say this is the year that they at least get back to bowl eligibility. And when you look at their schedule in advance of the Ohio State game, I don't think Nebraska is going to give Ohio State a fantastic game this year by any means. But they might come in with a real shiny record, and that might be a game that is a number 1 or number 2 Ohio State versus a number 10, number 12 kind of Nebraska, maybe. Here's who they have coming into that game. UTEP at home, Colorado at home, Northern Iowa at home, Illinois at home, at Purdue, home for Rutgers. That's it. I mean, I don't see an obvious loss on that schedule. The only road game is at Purdue. The best home game is probably Illinois, unless you're a real big Deion believer. And, Kevin, this is a team that I know Tony and I always talk about Northwestern being our favorite road trip. It's a fan base you really have to like. It's a stadium that you like. It's a program that you really kind of have to respect. There's a great history there. Like, I'd like to see Nebraska get better. It feels like this might be the year that Nebraska really does get better. And the Ohio State-Nebraska game feels like, oh, that's a pretty big football game.
For years, I have been tricked by the banana in the tailpipe routine, and I picked Nebraska to do really well, only for them to let me down. Last year, I didn't. And unfortunately, I didn't put any money on it because that would have been nice to be able to buy some souvenirs at Wrigley. But this will be the Dylan Raiola game, largely. One-time commit to Ohio State, one-time commit to Georgia, ends up flipping late to Nebraska. There are a lot of indications that he may be the guy as a true freshman. Here you go, son. We're going to just put you out there, even though I did see a report that they had an NAIA passer who threw for like 6,000 yards or something. So does that mean that things are not necessarily working with Raiola? Or are they trying to have, is Matt Rule looking for some backup? I don't know on there. I think really the biggest issue for Nebraska is that they've had nothing remarkable with its defense. Nothing remarkable there. They were the home of the black shirts. I've called them the black shirts here lately because they've just been so mid. I do agree that they could come in to Ohio Stadium undefeated, but also largely untested, because I'm not necessarily buying a complete rebuild again under Deion. I think that game at Purdue may be the most terrifying thing there, just because strange things happen. But normally that happens against better teams than Nebraska. But then again, Nebraska could have a 15 next to its name at that point, and you don't know. But I'll be very interested to see what happens there, what the progression is under Matt Rule, who I think is a good coach, but has probably been in some bad situations and is realizing that the rebuild isn't coming together as quickly as he hoped. But I think if you pull 100 Ohio State football fans, like real Ohio State football fans, not just people who kind of show up, at least 85 of them are going to say, oh yeah, I can't wait to see what this Raiola guy's all about.
Yeah, that's certainly be one of the really interesting storylines. You mentioned the Julian Fleming storyline for the Penn State game. We didn't even talk about Chip Kelly going back to Oregon. as an interesting storyline for that game. I mean, you want to talk about how many interesting things there are to talk about with the game. Former head coach of Oregon obviously has been there with UCLA in recent years, but former head coach of Oregon going back there as the offensive coordinator in a top 5 potential matchup. Boy, that's going to be an interesting story. And as far as Ross-Ade Stadium being haunted, as you were sort of hinting at there, the week after Ohio State plays at Eugene, Oregon has to fly cross-country on a Friday night and play at Ross-Ade Stadium Friday night after what could be the biggest win of the season if they beat Ohio State. I'm sure it's going to go fine. There's nothing to worry about at all. Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon.
Bet it now.
Welcome to the Big Ten. So we will be there for all of those games this year and the rest of them as well. I cannot wait. This is going to be such a great football season. It's a big football season all across the country. It is an enormous football season in Columbus, Ohio. You can already tell people are already talking about it, and they're talking about it as well at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus, making you a smarter football fan. There's plenty going on right now. Tony, Kevin, Mark, and I will all be out at Ohio State on Thursday, covering another big camp. There were some enormous names there on Tuesday. Mark and I did a show talking about some of those guys. Another big day coming up on Thursday. We'll have a full coverage for you on the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Photos, videos, insight, analysis, all that kind of stuff all day Thursday at Buckeye Huddle. And then, of course, all season and all off season long, we hope to see you there. The annual membership sale ends just in a couple days. Make sure you sign up now. Get about 40% off your annual membership before that sale ends. And again, Father's Day is coming up on Sunday. If you have a dad, if you are a dad, this would be a great present for Father's Day, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.